In a quiet Seattle supermarket, a mother stood frozen at the checkout, 2 hungry babies in her cart, and not enough money to pay for their formula. But the stranger who stepped forward that day wasn't just any man. He was one of the richest in the city, and his kindness would change her life in ways neither of them could have imagined. Before we dive into this, hit the subscribe button and tell us from where in the world you're watching from. Rosa Martinez had hands that could mend anything: torn clothes, broken hearts, shattered dreams. In their little house on Calle de las Flores, she raised Alina with steel wrapped in velvet. Every morning, before the sun kissed the mountains, Rosa would stand in her kitchen, making tortillas by hand, each one a perfect circle of love. "Mia," she'd tell young Alina, who'd sit cross-legged on the worn tile floor. Watching her mother's weathered hands work their magic, the world is full of wolves dressed like sheep. But kindness. Kindness is a language that even the meanest heart can understand. Alina was 17 when she first saw Daniel Reeves. He came to Guadalajara with the oil company, all swagger and promises wrapped in pressed khakis and a smile that could charm the paint off a barn. He had eyes like storm, clouds beautiful to look at, but dangerous when they darkened. "He's trouble, that one," Rosa whispered to her daughter after Daniel had left their porch. Having charmed his way into an invitation for Sunday dinner, "I've seen his type before. They take everything and leave you with nothing but scars." Lena was 18 then, full of fire and dreams bigger than their small town. When Daniel promised her America, promised her everything, she believed him. Young hearts, they don't listen to wisdom. They listen to want. The wedding was small, Rosa cried, and Alina thought it was from joy. Years later, she'd understand those were tears of mourning, mourning for the daughter she was about to lose. Daniel took her to Houston first, an apartment in a complex where the walls were thin and dreams went to die. He worked the rigs, came home smelling of crude oil and disappointment. The first time he raised his voice, Alina flinched but forgave. The first time he shoved her against the wall, she made excuses. Love makes fools of us all, but some fools pay a higher price than others. "You don't understand America," he'd tell her when she'd cry about being lonely, about missing her mother. "Here you need to be strong. I'm making you strong. Strong." Funny how men use that word when they're breaking you down piece by piece. 3 years passed like a slow bleed. Lena learned to walk on eggshells, learned to make herself small, learned that love and fear could twist together until you couldn't tell where one ended and the other began. When Rosa called, Alina would lie. "We're happy, Mama. So very happy." But happiness was a luxury she couldn't afford. Then came the night that changed everything. Daniel came home drunk, meaner than a rattlesnake. The argument started over nothing burnt. Dinner, a bill left unpaid, the way she looked at him. Ow. It ended with Alina on the kitchen floor, tasting blood, feeling something inside her crack like thin ice. That's when she found out about the baby's twin girls, growing inside her while her world crumbled around her. She held that positive pregnancy test like it was made of spun glass, knowing that everything had just changed. When she told Daniel, he stared at her like she'd grown a second head. Then he smiled. Not a happy smile. A cold one. "Well," he said, cracking open another beer, "guess you ain't going nowhere now." Pregnancy should be a time of joy, should be. But for Alina, it was like being buried alive, one day at a time. Daniel watched her like a hawk watches a field mouse. Waiting for any excuse to strike, he controlled everything. The money, the car keys, the phone. Alina wasn't allowed to work. "What would people think?" he'd say. "My wife, working while I provide." But providing was generous. They lived on ramen noodles and broken promises. When the girls came, Isabella and Sophia, born 2 minutes apart on a rainy Tuesday in March, Alina held them and felt love so pure it nearly stopped her heart. They were perfect. Tiny fists and dark eyes that seemed to look right through her soul. "They better not cry too much," was the first thing Daniel said when he saw them. Not "they're beautiful" or "I love them." It's just a threat wrapped in casual words. The first few months were a blur of sleepless nights and mounting terror. Daniel's drinking got worse, his temper shorter. The babies would cry because that's what babies do. and he'd explode like a firecracker in a tin can. "Shut them up," he'd roar. "Shut them up, or I'll shut them up myself." Lena would rock them, sing to them, do anything to keep them quiet, keep them safe. She sang the lullabies Rosa had sung to her, but they sounded different now, desperate, like prayers whispered in the dark. The breaking point came when the girls were 8 months old. Sophia was teething, crying inconsolably, despite Elena's best efforts. Daniel had been drinking since noon, watching some game on TV, getting madder with each passing hour. I said, "Shut that kid up." He stood, swaying slightly, his face red with rage. "I'm trying." The slap came so fast, Elena didn't see it coming. She stumbled backward, Sophia still crying in her arms. But this time, this one time, Daniel didn't stop there. He grabbed Elena's wrist, twisted it until she gasped. "Maybe you need a reminder of who runs this house." That's when Elena saw it. In his eyes. Not just anger, not just meanness, something darker, something that would hurt her babies if she stayed. That night, while Daniel slept off his drunk, Elena made a plan. It wasn't much of a plan, more like a desperate prayer wrapped in false courage. She had $73 hidden in a coffee can, not much, but enough to buy a bus ticket to somewhere. Anywhere but here. She packed light, just the essentials. For the girls in one photo, Rosa, smiling in her kitchen, flour dusting her hands. Everything else she left behind. Her wedding ring, she dropped in the garbage disposal. Some symbols need to be destroyed, not just discarded. The bus to Seattle left at 5:47 a.m. Elena chose Seattle because it was far, because it was different, because Daniel would never think to look for her there. The girls slept most of the journey, tiny angels unaware that their mother was burning every bridge she'd ever known, asterisk. What Elena couldn't know, was that Adrien Laurent had been watching her for 3 weeks. Oh, not in a creepy way, mind you, more like guardian angel with a corporate expense account and too many questions. See, Adrien, had this. Thing about lost causes, maybe it came from being one himself once upon a time. Adrien Laurent wasn't born rich. It's important to understand. He was born Adrian Kowalski in Detroit, back when the city still pretended it had a future. His mother cleaned office buildings at night. His father specialized in disappointment and cheap whiskey. By the time he was 12, Adrian was more parent than child, making sure there was food in the fridge, making sure the lights stayed on, making sure his mother got to work on time despite the bruises that painted her face in shades of purple and shame. The night his father died, drunk driving, it took out. A family of 4 with Heimadrin felt nothing. Not sadness, not relief, just ... nothing. His mother cried for weeks, Rien planned. He changed his name at 18. Kowalski became Laurent. Adrien became Adrien. If you're going to reinvent yourself, might as well sound French while you do it. The money came from tech. Early investments in companies that most people thought were pipe dreams. Adrien had a gift for seeing patterns, for understanding what people needed before they knew they needed it. By 35, he was worth more money than most small countries. But money's funny. More you have, the less it means. And Adrien Laurent, billionaire philanthropist, woke up every morning in his penthouse. Apartment feeling emptier than he had, sleeping on a mattress on the floor in Detroit. That's when he started the watching, not stalking. Never stalking, but ... observing. People in crisis. People who reminded him of his mother, of himself. He'd find ways to help without getting involved. An anonymous scholarship, mysterious benefactor paying off medical bills. Christmas presents. Showing up at women's shelters with no return address, he first saw Elena at the unemployment office downtown. She was filling out forms with one baby strapped to her chest, the other squirming in a carrier at her feet. She looked so tired she could barely keep her eyes open. She kept going. Stubborn, determined. Something about her reminded him of his mother, but stronger, unbroken despite everything trying to break her. So he watched, discreetly, a private investigator named Marcus Kane, former cop, good at staying invisible, kept tabs. Elena Martinez, 24, originally from Mexico. No family in the area, no support system.
Us.
living week to week in a boarding house that should have been condemned years ago, and the husband, and Daniel Reeves. Oh. Adrian learned plenty about Daniel Reeves. Arrested twice for domestic violence, charges dropped both times. Alina too scared to testify. Pattern as old as time and twice as ugly. He's looking for her, Marcus reported one Tuesday over coffee in Adrian's office. Posted her picture on social media claiming she kidnapped his kids. Real piece of work, this guy. That's when Adrian made the decision to get closer, to be ready when Alina needed help. Because women like Alina, they always need help eventually. The only question was whether anyone would be there to offer it. The convenience store wasn't chance. Adrian had Marcus tracking Alina's patterns. He knew she shopped there, knew when, knew she was running out of money. He'd been waiting 3 nights for the right moment. Some might call it manipulative. Adrian called it preparation, but what he wasn't prepared for was the way Alina looked at him. Not with gratitude, though that was there too, but with this fierce, protective love that blazed from her eyes like a bonfire, the kind of love his mother had never quite managed to show him. Driving home that night, Adrian made another decision. Alina Martinez wasn't going to be just another charity case. She was going to be his chance at something real, something that mattered. He just didn't realize yet how much that decision was going to cost them both. Asterisk the next morning. Alina woke up wondering if the night before had been a dream. The formula was real, sitting on Mrs. Chen's tiny kitchenette. Counter like evidence of miracles. "You have visitor," Mrs. Chen said, balancing Sophia on her hip while Isabella gurgled from her bouncer. "Man in nice suit," says he friend. Elena's blood went cold. Daniel, somehow he'd found her. But when she peered through the grimy window, she saw Adrian Laurent standing beside a black sedan, looking like he'd stepped out of a magazine. Relief flooded through her, followed immediately by suspicion. Rich men didn't just show up at boarding houses in South Seattle, not unless they wanted something. She opened the door cautiously, keeping the chain latched. "Mr. Laurent, hope you don't mind the intrusion. I brought something." For the girls, he held up a bag from an expensive children's store. "And I have a proposition for you." Lena unlatched the chain, curiosity overcoming caution. "What kind of proposition? The kind that gets you and your daughters out of this place?" Inside her tiny room, Adrian looked impossibly tall, impossibly out of place. He set the bag on her bedclothes for the girls, soft and new and beautiful. Isabella immediately reached for him, and to Elena's surprise, he picked her up with the ease of someone comfortable around children. "I run several businesses," he said, bouncing Isabella gently. "I need someone to help with administrative tasks. Filing, phone calls, scheduling, nothing too complex. The pay is..." He named a figure that made Elena's knees weak. "That's more than most people make in a year." "Yes, it is." He set Isabella back in her bouncer. "There's also an apartment, company housing, safe neighborhood, good schools for when they're older." Elena stared at him. "Why are you doing this?" "Because you need help and I need an assistant. You don't even know if I can do the job." Adrian smiled, and for the first time since she'd met him, he looked almost boyish. "Alina, you're managing to keep 2 babies alive on $36 and change. I think you can handle filing." It was too good to be true, Alina had learned. To be suspicious of things that seemed too good to be true? What's the catch? No catch, just work. Hard work, but nothing you can't handle. Alina looked around her room, the peeling wallpaper, a single bed where she slept with both babies, because there wasn't room for anything else. The window that didn't close properly and let in the cold Seattle rain. Daughters, beautiful and innocent and deserving of so much more than this. When do I start? The apartment was in Capitol Hill, in a building that had been recently renovated. 2 bedrooms, a kitchen with actual counter space, and a living room where sunlight streamed through clean windows. Elena walked through it like she was touring. "A palace. The lease is in your name," Adrian explained, handing her the keys. "Rent and utilities are covered as part of your compensation package." "This is too much," Elena whispered, watching Isabella and Sophia crawl across the hardwood floors. Like they owned the place. "It's what you need. What they need." The job was real, it turned out. Adrian wasn't lying about needing an assistant. His business empire was vast tech investments, real estate, a foundation that donated millions to various causes. Lena worked from the apartment mostly, handling correspondence, managing schedules, coordinating meetings. She was good at it. Better than good. Lena had a mind for details, for organization, for reading between the lines of what people really needed. Within a month, Adrian was relying on her for more than just filing. "You have a gift for this?" he told her during one of their weekly check-ins. "Have you ever considered going back to school? Business management, maybe?" Lena laughed, but not meanly when, between feeding the girls and working and sleeping, there are programs, online courses. I could arrange for childcare. "Mr. Laurent, Adrienne, please, Adrienne. You're already doing too much. I can't ask for more." But he was already researching programs, already making calls, because that's who Adrien Laurent was, a man who saw problems and solved them. Whether you asked him to or not, the girls thrived in their new environment. Isabella, the quieter one, loved books and would sit still for hours while Elena read. To her, Sophia was the explorer, constantly getting into things, constantly making Elena laugh with her fearless curiosity. For the first time in years, Elena felt safe. She could sleep without listening for footsteps in the hallway, could go to the store without looking over her shoulder, could let her daughters laugh without worrying about disturbing someone who might take it out on them later. But safety, as Elena was about to learn, is sometimes just another word for the calm before the storm. Daniel found her on a Tuesday. Elena was walking back from the grocery store. It's the girls in their double stroller when she saw him, leaning against a lamppost like he belonged there, like he'd been waiting for her to come home. Her heart stopped. Actually stopped. For a moment that lasted forever, Elena forgot how to breathe. He looked the same, be a little thinner, a little meaner around the eyes, but the same Daniel who'd promised her the world and delivered nothing but pain. "Hello, Elena." She wanted to run. Every instinct screamed at her to grab the stroller and sprint, but her legs wouldn't move. Fear had turned her to stone. "Daddy," Sophia called out, reaching toward him. Elena's heart cracked. Sophia didn't understand. Couldn't understand. She just saw a man Elena used to call family. "That's right, sweetheart," Daniel said, his voice honey-sweet in that way that meant trouble. "Daddy's here. What do you want?" Elena's voice came out smaller than she intended. "My family. What I've always wanted." He stepped closer, and Elena caught the smell of stale cigarettes in desperation. "You can't just steal my kids and disappear." "Elena, that's not how this works. They're not your kids. You never wanted them. You made that clear." Daniel's smile was sharp as a blade. "Funny thing about the law, doesn't matter what I wanted. It matters what's on the birth certificate." He pulled out a folded paper. "Court documents. Custody hearing. Friday at 2 p.m. Elena's world tilted. "Can't, I won't let you. ... You don't have a choice. Unless..." Paused, studying her like a cat studies a wounded bird. "We could work something out. Come home. Be a family again. I've changed, Elena. I've learned." "You haven't changed." "No. Never change." "Maybe, but I'm their father, and the law's on my side." He leaned closer, lowering his voice so the girls couldn't hear. "You really think some judge is going to give custody to a woman who kidnapped her own children, who's been living under a fake name?" Elena's fake name. In the panic of running, she'd given Mrs. Chen a different last name, Martinez, instead of Reeves. It had seemed smart at the time. Now it looked like evidence of deception. "I'll fight you," she whispered. "With what?" "Lawyer. What money?" Daniel straightened up, checking his watch like he had somewhere important to be. "Face it, baby. You're in over your head." "But I'm feeling generous. Come home with me now, no questions asked, and we'll pretend this whole thing never happened." "Never." "Suit. Yourself. See you in court." He bent down to wave at the girls. "Bye-bye, princesses. Daddy will see you real soon." He walked away whistling, leaving Elena standing on the sidewalk with her world falling apart around her. That night, after the girls were asleep, Elena sat at her kitchen table staring at the court documents. The legal language might as well have been written in ancient Greek, but the meaning was clear. Daniel was coming for her children, and he had the law on his side. She could run again, pack up in the middle of the night and disappear. But where? And for how long? Daniel had found her once. He'd find her again, or she could fight. But with what? She had no money for a lawyer, no evidence of Daniel's abuse beyond scars that had faded and memories that wouldn't hold up in court. Alina looked at Adrian's business card, still tucked into her wallet like a talisman. He'd said to call if she needed help, real help. But this was different. This was asking him to get involved in something that could destroy him too. She'd already taken so much from him, the job, the apartment, the kindness. How could she ask for more? The phone rang. At 11:47 p.m., Alina hesitated, then answered. Alina, it's Adrien. I just heard what? About the custody hearing. About Daniel. Alina's blood went cold. How did you? That doesn't matter right now. What matters is that you don't have to face this alone. I'm coming over. Adrien. No, this isn't your problem. The hell it isn't. The line went dead. 20 minutes later, there was a soft knock at Elena's door. Adrien looked different in the dim light of Elena's apartment. Harder, more dangerous. Like the billionaire philanthropist had been stripped away to reveal something sharper underneath. We need to talk, he said, settling onto her couch.
About?
Daniel. About why he's really here. He wants the girls. He wants to hurt me. That's part of it, but there's more. Adrien leaned forward, his dark eyes intense. Alina, I need you to listen to what I'm about to tell you, and I need you to trust me. Can you do that? Alina nodded, though every instinct told her she was about to hear something that would change everything. I knew Daniel before I met you. Not personally, but we had business dealings. Indirect ones. What kind of business dealings? The kind that made me understand exactly what kind of man he is. Adrian's jaw tightened. 3 years ago, I was investigating a company for potential investment. Small drilling operation down in Texas. During due diligence, several complaints surfaced about safety violations, sexual harassment, domestic violence among the crew. Elena's hands began to tremble. Daniel's name came up multiple times. As the perpetrator, as the enabler. The guy who covered things up, who made problems disappear, who made sure the company's reputation stayed clean. Adrian's voice was quiet, but steel-hard, including covering up the fact that he was beating his pregnant wife. New Alina whispered. When you helped me at the store, you knew who I was. I suspected. I confirmed it later. This whole think the job, the apartment, the kindness, it was all ... What? Charity. Guilt. Adrien was quiet for a long moment. At first, maybe. I saw a woman who reminded me of my mother. A woman in trouble who needed help. But it became more than that. More how I started caring about you, about the girls, about what happened to you. He met her eyes. And I realized that Daniel Reeves wasn't just your problem anymore. He was. Mine. Alina stood up, pacing to the window. Outside, Seattle glittered like scattered diamonds. So what now? You throw money at the problem and make it disappear? It's not that simple. Daniel's not just after custody. He's after revenge. And he's not working alone. That stopped Alina cold. What do you mean, not alone? The drilling company I mentioned. It went under after I pulled my investment and reported the safety violations. A lot of people lost their jobs. People who blamed me for their troubles. Adrien joined her at the window. Daniel's one of them. But more than that, he's been paid to find you. Paid to make this public, messy, embarrassing. Paid. By who? People who want to hurt me? Who see you and the girls as the perfect weapon. Alina felt the room spin. I need to sit down, Alina. Listen to me. But this custody hearing isn't about Daniel wanting his children. It's about destroying you to get to me. And I won't let that happen. Can't stop it. He has legal rights. Rights can be challenged, especially when the person claiming them has a history of violence, unemployment, and substance abuse. You can prove that? I can prove more than that. Adrian's smile was cold as winter moonlight. Daniel Reeves made a lot of enemies over the years. People are very willing to testify against him. given the right motivation. Alina stared at him. Who are you? Really? I'm the man who's going to make sure you never have to be afraid of Daniel Reeves again. What does that cost me? Nothing you're not willing to give. But Alina had been poor too long, scared too long, not to understand that everything had a price. And she was starting to suspect that the bill for Adrien Laurent's protection might be higher than she could afford. I need time to think. Time is what we don't have. The hearing is in 3 days. Then what do you propose we do? Adrien's expression went dark. We remind Daniel Reeves why it's dangerous to threaten a mother's children. The law offices of Kellerman, Price and Associates occupied 3 floors of a glass tower in downtown Seattle. Lena had never been anywhere so intimidating. All marble and mahogany, and men in suits that cost more than her monthly rent used to be. Mrs. Reeves, the lawyer Harold Kellerman himself, Adrien had spared no expense, gestured to a chair across from his massive desk. Please, sit down. We have a lot to discuss. Lena looked to Adrien, who nodded encouragingly. They'd spent the last 2 days preparing, gathering evidence, building what Kellerman called a comprehensive defense strategy. What Alina called trying to keep her baby safe. I've reviewed all the materials Mr. Laurent provided, Kellerman said, opening a thick file. I'll be honest with you, this isn't going to be easy. Your ex-husband's legal team is competent, and they've built their case around parental rights and what they're calling parental kidnapping. But I was protecting my children, I know that. You know that. But the law can be inflexible when it comes to these matters. Kellerman leaned back in his chair. However, we have some advantages. Your ex-husband's employment history is spotty at best. There are documented complaints about his conduct, his drinking, his temper. Will that be enough? Might be, especially combined with the testimony we've gathered. Testimony? Adrien spoke up. Women Daniel worked with? Neighbors from when you lived in Houston? People who saw what he was like? Alina felt a flicker of hope. They'll really testify. They'll testify, Kellerman confirmed. The question is whether the judge will give their testimony proper weight. Family court judges tend to favor keeping children with biological parents, even when those parents are ... problematic. So what do? We prepare for war, Kellerman said simply. And we pray that justice prevails. That evening, Alina sat in her apartment watching her daughters play. Isabella was building a tower out of blocks while Sophia knocked it down, both of them giggling like it was the funniest thing in the world. So innocent. So unaware that their entire future hung in the balance. Adrien was on the phone in the kitchen, speaking in low, urgent tones. Alina caught fragments. Make sure he understands the consequences, and I don't care what it costs, and by tomorrow morning. When he hung up, Alina confronted him. What aren't you telling me? What do you mean? You've been making calls all day. Secret conversations. You promised no more secrets. Adrien sat down beside her on the couch, suddenly looking older than his 35 years. I've been calling in favors, making sure certain facts about Daniel's past come to light. What kind of facts? The kind that might not surface in a normal custody hearing. But Daniel isn't fighting a normal custody battle, is he? He's fighting a war. So we fight back. Alina studied his face. You're planning something. I'm planning to win. At what cost? Whatever it takes. That night, Alina dreamed about Rosa's kitchen in Guadalajara. In the dream, her mother was making tortillas, her hands sure and steady, flour dusting her dark hair. Mia Rosa said without looking up, sometimes the only way to kill a monster is to become one yourself. I want to become a monster, Mama. Then you better pray someone else is willing to do it for you. Alina woke with tears on her cheeks and the taste of fear in her mouth. King County Family Court was exactly as intimidating as Alina had imagined. Cold marble floors that echoed every footstep, fluorescent lights that made everyone look sick, and the kind of institutional silence that pressed down on your shoulders. Like a heavy coat, Daniel was already there when Alina arrived, sitting at the plaintiff's table with his lawyer, a thin man, with calculating eyes and a smile that never reached his face. Daniel had cleaned up for court, trading his usual jeans and work shirt for a cheap suit that didn't quite fit, but he looked sober, responsible, like the kind of man who deserved his children back. Alina knew better. Mrs. Reeves, Daniel's lawyer Tamsin, according to his nameplate, stood as she entered. I want you to know this doesn't have to be adversarial. My client simply wants to be reunited with his children. Alina didn't dignify that with a response. She took her seat next to Kellerman, her hands folded tightly to stop them from shaking. Judge Maria Santos looked exactly like what Alina hoped for in a family court. Judge a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and silver hair, the kind of person who might understand what it meant to protect your children at any cost. This is a hearing to determine temporary custody of minor children, Isabella Marie Reeves and Sophia Alina Reeves. Judge Santos began. Mr. Thompson, your client's petition claims that the respondent unlawfully removed the children from their home state and has denied him access to his daughters for over a year. Is that correct? Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Reeves has been searching for his children since they disappeared in March of 2008. He only recently discovered their whereabouts and immediately filed for custody. And Mr. Kellerman, how does your client respond to these allegations, Your Honor? My client didn't disappear with her children. She fled with them. She was escaping a pattern of domestic violence that endangered both her and her daughters. Alleged domestic violence, Thompson interrupted. For which there are no police reports, no hospital records, no documentation whatsoever. Elena's heart sank. It was true she'd never called the police, never gone to a hospital. She'd been too scared, too ashamed, too convinced that no one would believe her. Your Honor, Kellerman continued, the lack of official reports doesn't mean the abuse didn't occur. Many victims of domestic violence don't report for a variety of reasons: fear, shame, economic dependence on their abuser. Nevertheless, Judge Santos said, this court requires evidence, not allegations. Mr. Thompson, please call your first witness. The next 2 hours were a masterclass in character assassination. Daniel's witnesses painted a picture of a devoted father whose wife had become increasingly unstable after the birth of their daughters. A neighbor testified that she'd heard Alina screaming at the babies late at night. Daniel's supervisor claimed Alina had called the job site multiple times, acting crazy, accusing Mr. Reeves of things that never happened. Alina watched her life being rewritten, her truth being twisted into something unrecognizable. When Daniel took the stand, he was the picture of wounded fatherhood. I loved my wife, he said, his voice breaking at just the right moment. I love my daughters, and I just want my family back together. Mr. Reeves, Thompson prompted, can you describe your wife's behavior in the months before she disappeared? She was different after the babies were born. Paranoid, angry all the time. She'd accuse me of terrible things, things I'd never do. I tried to get her help, but she refused. Did you ever strike your wife? Never. I may have raised my voice sometimes, what married couple doesn't argue, but I never laid a hand on her. It was a masterful performance. Daniel looked directly at Alina as he spoke, his eyes promising retribution for every word she'd ever spoken against him. Then Kellerman stood for cross-examination. Mr. Reeves, you testified that you never struck your wife. Is that correct?
Yes.
That's correct. What about the incident at the Roadhouse bar in March of 2008? You remember that? Daniel's face went pale. I don't know what you're talking about. According to the police report, you were involved in an altercation with another patron. Several witnesses described you as extremely violent and out of control. You broke a man's nose. That was different. It was just a bar fight. See. And the arrest for public intoxication in January of 2008? I'd had a few drinks. So what? And the citation for disturbing the peace after neighbors complained about loud arguing and sounds of a struggle coming from your apartment? Stood. Objection, Your Honor. None of this speaks to Mr. Reeves's relationship with his children. It speaks to his character and his propensity for violence, Kellerman countered. I'll allow it, Judge Santos said. Continue, Mr. Kellerman. For the next hour, Kellerman systematically destroyed Daniel's image as a loving father and devoted husband. Police reports, witness statements, EMPLOYMENT, records showing a pattern of job loss due to aggressive behavior and conflict with coworkers. But Alina could see it wasn't enough. Judge Santos looked troubled, but not convinced.
Oh, yes.
Testimony, and she was too terrified to take the stand, too afraid she'd break down and prove Daniel's claims about her instability. The case came down to, he said, she said. That's when Adrian made his move. Your Honor, Kellerman said, I'd like to call Adrien Laurent to the stand. Daniel's lawyer shot to his feet. Objection. Mr. Laurent has no standing in this case. He's not family, not a witness to any alleged abuse. Mr. Laurent has relevant testimony regarding Mr. Reeves's character and recent behavior, Kellerman said smoothly. I'll allow it, Judge Santos decided. Keep it relevant, counselor. Adrien walked to the witness stand with the quiet confidence of a man accustomed to being in control. He was sworn in, stated his name and occupation, and then Kellerman began. Mr. Laurent, how do you know the respondent, Alina Martinez? She works for me, has for the past several months. And how would you characterize her work performance? Exceptional. She's intelligent, organized, completely reliable. She's also a devoted mother who puts her children's needs above everything else. Have you observed any behavior that would suggest instability or inability to care for her children? Quite the opposite. I've never seen a more dedicated parent. And what about Mr. Reeves? Have you had any interaction with him? Adrien's eyes found Daniel across the courtroom. Unfortunately, yes. Can you describe that interaction? 3 days ago, Mr. Reeves approached Ms. Martinez outside her apartment building. I witnessed him threatening her and her children. Daniel half rose from his chair. That's a lie. It's Mr. Reeves, Judge Santos said sharply. You will remain seated and silent. What did you observe? Kellerman continued. Mr. Reeves was clearly intoxicated. He grabbed Ms. Martinez by the arm hard enough to leave bruises. He told her that if she didn't come home with him, he would make sure she never saw those kids again. Objection. Thompson was on his feet. This is hearsay at best, completely fabricated at worst, Your Honor, Kellerman said calmly. I have photographs of the bruises on Ms. Martinez's arm taken the next day and time-stamped. I also have a recording of the encounter. Alina stared at Adrien in shock. He'd been watching that day. Recording? I'd like to enter both into evidence, Kellerman continued. The photographs were damning clear, finger-shaped bruises on Elena's upper arm, but the recording was devastating. Daniel's voice, slurred with alcohol and rage, making threats that no judge could ignore. You think you can hide from me forever? You think your rich boyfriend can protect you? I'll destroy him, and then I'll destroy you, and then those kids will be mine. There won't be nobody to stop me from making them pay for what you did. The courtroom was silent, except for the soft whir of the recording device. Alina watched Daniel's face go from pale to gray to sick green. Your Honor, Thompson said weakly. My client was obviously distraught. Your client was obviously threatening violence against the mother of his children. Judge Santos cut him off. Her voice was ice cold. In front of those children, rest happened quickly. More witnesses. Kellerman had somehow found neighbors from Houston who testified about the screaming matches, the holes punched in walls, the ambulance that came one night but left without taking anyone to the hospital because Alina had been too scared to admit what happened by the time court adjourned. Daniel's case had collapsed like a house made of cards. Judge Santos awarded temporary custody to Alina, pending a full investigation into Daniel's fitness as a parent. Outside the courthouse, Daniel cornered Alina and Adrien in the parking lot. You think you won? He snarled, all pretense of respectability. Gone. This ain't over. Not by a long shot. Actually, Adrien said quietly, it is over, because you're going to disappear, Daniel. You're going to go back to whatever hole you crawled out of, and you're never going to contact Alina or her children again. Can't make me do nothing, can't I? Adrien pulled out his phone, showed Daniel the screen. It was a bank statement. That's your account, isn't it? It's interesting deposits over the past few months. Want to explain to the IRS where that money came from? Or maybe you'd prefer to explain it to the people who paid you. I hear they don't like employees who fail to deliver. Daniel went pale. You don't know what you're messing with. I know exactly what I'm messing with. The question is, do you? For a moment, Alina thought Daniel might actually attack Adrien right there in the courthouse parking lot. His hands were clenched into fists, his face twisted with rage. But then something asterisk 3 months passed like a held breath slowly released. Alina threw herself into work, into being the best assistant Adrien had ever had, into proving she was worth the risk. He'd taken on her. The girls thrived. Isabella started talking in full sentences. Sophia took her first real steps, both of them growing into the safe. Happy children Alina had always dreamed they could be. But safety, Alina was learning, came with its own kind of prison. "You don't have to do this," Adrian told her one evening as she worked late in his home office, reconciling accounts that could have waited until morning. "The custody hearing is over. Daniel's gone. You can breathe now." "I need to earn what?" You've already earned it 100 times over." Alina looked up from the computer screen, studying his face in the lamplight. He looked tired, older somehow than he had 6 months ago. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong." "Don't lie to me. Not now." Adrian was quiet for a long moment, then moved to the window that overlooked Elliott Bay. The city spread out below them like scattered jewels on black velvet. "The people who hired Daniel, they're not happy about how things ended." Elena's blood went cold. "What does that mean?" "It means they're looking for other ways to get to me. Other pressure points, the girls and me. I won't let anything happen to you. You can't watch us every second of every day." "I can try." Alina stood, moved to stand beside him at the window. "It is about more than just business competition, isn't it? This is personal. Very personal. Tell me." So he did. Marcus Kellaway had been Adrian's business partner once. Back in the early days when they were both hungry kids with more ambition than sense. They'd built their first company together, a small software firm that created database management systems for oil companies. Marcus was brilliant, Adrian said, his voice distant with memory. But he was also ruthless in ways that made me uncomfortable. He'd bribe inspectors, cover up safety violations, anything to keep the contracts coming. What happened? "I found out he was falsifying inspection reports. Equipment that should have been condemned was being passed as safe. People were going to die." Adrian's reflection in the window looked haunted. "I gave him a choice: clean up the company or I'd expose everything. And he chose to try to destroy me instead. Embezzled money from the company accounts, made it look like I was the one cooking the books. By the time I cleared my name, our partnership was over, and Marcus was in federal prison." "How long ago was this? 15 years? "Months ago." Alina felt the pieces clicking together. "Hired Daniel, among others. Marcus has spent 15 years in prison planning his revenge. He knows the only way to really hurt me is to take away something I care about. So what do? We stay vigilant, stay safe, and we wait for him to make a mistake." But Alina was tired of waiting, tired of being protected, tired of feeling like a helpless victim in someone else's war. That night, after Adrian had gone home and the girls were asleep, she made a decision that would change everything. She called Marcus Kellaway. The meeting was Elena's idea. But Marcus chose the place, a coffee shop in Pioneer Square. Public. Enough to be safe, busy enough to avoid being overheard. Alina arrived first, ordered a coffee she wouldn't drink, and waited. Marcus Kellaway looked exactly like what Alina expected a man who'd spent 15 years in federal prison to look like: lean, hard, with eyes that missed nothing and trusted no one. He ordered black coffee and sat across from her like they were old friends catching up. "You're braver than I expected," he said without preamble. "Or more foolish, probably both. Adrian know you're here? What do you think?" It wasn't a pleasant expression. "I think Adrian Kowalski from Detroit has been playing dress-up as Adrian Laurent. For so long, he's forgotten who he really is. And who is he really? Thief, a liar. A man who destroyed my life and then got rich off the pieces." Alina studied his face. "That's not how he tells it." "Of course it isn't. Winners get to write history." Marcus leaned back in his chair. "Did he tell you about the Macondo project?" Lena's heart started beating faster. "No. Deep water drilling. Platformed in the Gulf of Mexico. We had the safety contract tower systems were supposed to monitor pressure, detect dangerous buildups before they became catastrophic." Marcus's voice was matter of fact, but his eyes burned. Knew the sensors were faulty. Knew they were giving false readings. But the contract was worth $50 million, so he told me to keep quiet. I don't believe you. 21 people died when that platform exploded. 21 people who might still be alive if Adrian Laurent had cared more about safety than profit. Alina felt sick. You're lying. Am I ask him about Macondo? Ask him about the lawsuit that got buried, the families who got paid off to keep quiet. Ask him how he made his first $100 million. Why are you telling me this? Because I want you to understand what kind of man you're trusting with your children's lives. Marcus leaned forward. I don't want to hurt you, Alina. I don't. Want to hurt your girls? But I will if that's what it takes to make Adrian pay for what he did. What do you want, Justice? I want the world to know who Adrian Kowalski really is. I want him to lose everything the way I lost everything. Marcus's voice dropped to a whisper. Help me bring him down, and I'll disappear forever. Refuse, and this war gets uglier than you can imagine. Alina stood up, her coffee untouched. I need time to think. You have 24 hours. I start playing hardball. Alina walked out of the coffee shop on unsteady legs, Marcus's words echoing in her head. Was Adrian the man she thought he was, her savior, her protector? Or was he something else entirely? That night, she confronted him. Tell me about Macondo, she said without preamble. When he arrived for their weekly dinner with the girls, Adrie, and went very still. Where did you hear that name? Does it matter? It matters very much. His voice was carefully controlled. Alina, whatever you've been told, were you responsible for those people's deaths? It's not that simple. It is that simple. Yes. Or no, did your negligence cause 21 people to die? Adrian was quiet for a long time, watching Isabella and Sophia play in the living room, their laughter a sharp contrast to the darkness of the conversation. The sensors were faulty, he said finally. I knew it. Akis knew it. But the fix would have cost millions and delayed the project by months. Elena's heart sank. So you did nothing. I tried to convince the oil company to delay, to fix the sensors. They refused. Said it was an acceptable risk. You went along with it. I was 26 years old, Alina. I was scared of losing the biggest contract we'd ever had. So yes, I went along with it. Adrian's voice was filled with self-loathing. And 21 people died because I was too much of a coward to do the right thing. Alina sat down heavily. Why didn't you tell me? Because I was afraid you'd look at me the way you're looking at me now. Alina stared at this man who'd saved her life, who'd given her and her children safety and hope and a future, and tried to reconcile that with the young man who'd chosen money over lives. What happened? To Marcus? She asked. He tried to expose the cover-up. When that didn't work, he tried to frame me for embezzlement. He went to prison, but not for the right reasons. And you got rich. I used the money from that contract to build my empire, yes. I've spent every day since trying to atone for what I did. Is that why you help people like me? Out of guilt? Adrian met her eyes at first. Maybe. But with you. Alina, you changed everything. You made me remember what it felt like to care about something more than money. Alina believed him. Despite everything, she believed him. But belief and trust were different things. Marcus wants me to help him destroy you, she said, and will you? Alina looked at her daughters, safe and happy and loved, then back at the man who'd made that possible. The man who'd killed 21 people through cowardice and greed. The man who'd saved her life. I don't know, she said honestly. That night, Alina lay awake staring at the ceiling, caught between two truths that couldn't coexist. Adrien Laurent was a good man who'd done a terrible thing, or he was a terrible man who'd done good things. Either way, she was trapped in the middle of a war between two men who'd both sacrificed their humanity for what they thought was justice, and tomorrow, she'd have to choose which monster she could live with. Alina didn't sleep. By morning, she'd made her decision a choice that felt like stepping off a cliff while hoping someone would catch her. She called Marcus. I'll help you, she said without preamble. But I have conditions. I'm listening. Daughters are off limits. Completely. Whatever happens between you and Adrian, they don't get hurt. Agreed. And when it's over, when you've had your revenge, you disappear forever. That was always the plan. Alina closed her eyes. What do you need me to do, Adrian? Keeps files. Physical files, not digital. There's a safe in his home office. I need you to get me whatever's in there. You want me to steal from him? I want you to help me expose the truth. And if I get caught, you won't. Adrian trusts you completely. He'd never suspect you of betraying him. The word betraying hit Alina like a physical blow, because that's what this was, wasn't it? Betrayal of the man who'd saved her life, given her hope, treated her with kindness when the world had shown her nothing but cruelty. But 21 people were dead. 21 families destroyed. Didn't they deserve justice too? How do I get into the safe? I'll text you the combination. Adrian hasn't changed it in 15 years. It's his mother's birthday. How do you know that? Because I knew him when he still remembered where he came from. That evening, Adrian arrived for dinner looking exhausted. There were dark circles under his eyes, and his usually perfect appearance was slightly disheveled. Rough day, Alina asked, hating herself for the casual normalcy of the question. Marcus is escalating. He's been spreading rumors, trying to damage my business relationships. It's ... challenging. I'm sorry. It's not your fault. Adrian managed a tired smile as Isabella ran to him, demanding to be picked up. Besides, coming here, seeing you, and the girls ... it reminds me what I'm fighting for. Elena's heart cracked a little more. Adrien ... I know this is hard on you. The uncertainty, the danger. If you want to take the girls and leave, go somewhere safe until this is over. No. The word came out sharper than Alina intended. We're not running again, okay? But promise me something if anything happens to me, if Marcus manages to destroy me completely. You'll take the money I've set aside for you and disappear. Change your name, start over somewhere he can't find you. Nothing's going to happen to you. Promise. Me, Alina. She looked into his dark eyes, saw the fear there not for himself, but for her and the girls. I promise. After dinner, after Adrian had gone home, Alina waited until the girls were asleep. Then she used her key to enter his penthouse. The office was exactly as she'd left it earlier that day. Mahogany desk, leather chairs, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. And in the corner, the safe. Elena's hands shook as she entered the combination. The safe opened with a soft click, revealing neat stacks of documents, USB drives, and a small, leather-bound journal. She photographed everything with her phone, the flash seeming impossibly bright in the dark office. Financial records, legal documents, correspondence, and the journal Adrian's private thoughts. It's written in his careful handwriting. One entry made her stop breathing. Alina asked me today why I help people like her. Truth is too ugly to speak aloud. I help because I need to believe redemption is possible. Because if someone like Alina can forgive someone like me, maybe I can finally forgive myself from a condo. Maybe the ghosts will finally let me sleep. Alina closed the journal, her vision blurred with tears. Whatever Adrian had done, whatever he was guilty of, he'd been carrying that guilt like a stone in his chest for 15 years. The man who'd saved her was trying to save himself. One broken soul at a time. She copied everything anyway. The next morning, she met Marcus in a different coffee shop and handed over a USB drive containing copies of all the files. This is everything? Everything. Marcus plugged the drive into his laptop, scrolled through the files with the practiced eye of a man who'd been preparing for this moment for 15 years. Perfect. This is exactly what I need. What happens now? Now I destroy him. The financial records show he's been using shell companies to hide assets, avoiding taxes. The legal documents prove he knew about safety violations on dozens of projects but chose to stay silent. And this journal. Marcus smiled coldly. This journal is a confession. Elena felt sick. Did the families of the Macondo victims will this? Help them? Maybe. Probably not. Most of them took settlements years ago. But it'll destroy Adrian's reputation, his business empire, his life. And that's justice enough for me. When? Tomorrow. The information goes to every major news outlet simultaneously. By this time tomorrow, Adrian Kowalski will be front page. News. Alina walked home in a daze, wondering what she'd just unleashed. She'd chosen justice over loyalty, truth over love. But justice, she was learning, tasted like ashes in your mouth. That night, Adrian called, "Alina, I need to see you. Something's happened." He arrived at her apartment looking like he'd aged 10 years in 10 hours. Marcus has made his move. Lawyers are telling me to prepare for the worst. What kind of worst? Criminal charges, maybe? Civil lawsuits, definitely. Asset seizure, business dissolution, prison time. Adrien sat down heavily. I'm going to lose everything. Elena's throat felt tight. I'm sorry, don't be. I deserve this. I've deserved it for 15 years. He looked at his hands. But I need you to know whatever happens to me, the trust fund I set up for you and the girls is protected. You'll be okay financially, Adrien. And there's something else. Something I should have told you a long time ago. He met her eyes. I'm in love with you, Elena. I have been almost from the moment I met you. I know the timing is terrible, and I know you probably can't return my feelings, but I needed you to know. Before everything falls apart. Elena stared at him, this broken, complicated man who'd saved her life and ruined his own, trying to atone for his past. The man she'd just betrayed. I love you too, she whispered. And she did. God help her, she did. Adrien's face transformed with hope and wonder. Elena, ... She kissed him then, pouring all her guilt and love and regret into that one moment. Because tomorrow, when the news broke, when he realized what she'd done, this would be over forever. Stay tonight, she said against his lips. Please. He stayed. They made love quietly, desperately, like people stealing time they didn't have. Afterward, Adrien fell asleep holding her. Elena lay awake, counting the hours until dawn, until the moment when everything she cared about would be destroyed by her own hand. At 6 a.m., KM's phone started ringing. Don't answer it, Elena begged, but he was already reaching for it, already seeing the missed calls and urgent messages flooding in. His face went pale as he read, then gray, then coldly furious. Someone got into my safe, he said quietly. Someone. Copied my files and turned them over to the media. Elena couldn't speak. The journal was the worst part. They quoted directly from my personal journal. Gadian's voice was deadly calm. Only 3 people knew the combination to that safe. Me, my lawyer. Elena forced herself to meet his eyes. Adrien, it was you. Not a question. A statement. Of fact, delivered with surgical precision. You did this. Yes. Why? Because 21 people died. Because their families deserve to know the truth. Because Marcus convinced you I was a monster. Because you convinced me you were a monster. Your own words in your own journal. Adrien stood, began pulling on his clothes with mechanical precision. I trusted you with everything. My secrets, my heart, my life. You destroyed me. I'm sorry, no you're not. You made a choice. You chose justice over love. Truth over loyalty. Those are admirable choices. His smile was bitter as winter moonlight. I hope they keep you warm at night. He was almost to the door when Elena found her voice. What happens now? Now I face the consequences of my actions. All of them. Adrien paused, his hand on the doorknob. The trust fund for you and the girls, I'll make sure it transfers before my assets are frozen. You'll be safe. You'll be taken care of. I don't want your money. You have my children to think about. It took Elena a moment to process what he'd said. Your children? Did you think I didn't know? Isabella's eyes. Sophia smiled. They're mine. Elena. They've been mine since the day they were born. Elena's world tilted. That's impossible. Daniel is sterile. Childhood mumps. He found out years ago but never told you because he didn't want you to know he could never give you children. Adrien's voice was gentle, despite everything. When you got pregnant, he assumed you were cheating. That's when the real abuse started, wasn't it? Elena sank onto the couch, her mind reeling. But how? ... When? Company party. 2 years ago in Houston. You don't remember, do you? You've been drinking to forget how much Daniel had hurt you. I was there on business, staying at the same hotel. Adrien's voice grew softer. We talked for hours in the hotel bar, about dreams, about escape, about what it would feel like to be free. One thing led to another ... The memories came flooding back. A kind stranger who'd listened without judgment. Who'd made her feel beautiful and valued for one perfect night. She'd thought it was a dream, a fantasy her battered mind had created to escape reality. You knew they were yours when you helped me at the store? I suspected. I had to be sure before I did anything. DNA test confirmed it 3 months ago. Elena felt like she was drowning. So everything, the job, the apartment, the protection, it was never about guilt or charity. It was because they're your daughters. At first, yes. But it became more than that. It became about you, about us, about the family I thought we could be. Adrian's hand was on the door handle now. Goodbye, Alina. Take care of our girls. Wait, but he was gone, leaving Alina alone with the wreckage of everything she'd thought she knew about her life. Asterisk, the story broke at noon. Billionaire's secret past exposed screamed the headlines. Tech mogul linked to fatal oil rig disaster. 21 deaths. The cover-up that built an empire. Alina watched the news coverage with growing horror, seeing Adrian's life dissected by reporters who painted him as a monster in expensive suits. They showed photos of the Macondo victims, interviewed grieving families, read excerpts from his journal like evidence in a murder trial. By evening, federal agents had frozen his assets. By morning, criminal charges were filed. By the end of the week, Adrian Laurent had disappeared. He's probably in some non-extradition country, Marcus told her during their final meeting. Living off hidden accounts, starting over with a new identity. You got what you wanted, Elena said flatly. Justice isn't supposed to feel this empty. Marcus looked older, deflated somehow. But it's done. He's gone. You and your girls can live normal lives now. But normal felt like a foreign concept. Alina moved through her days like a ghost, caring for Isabella and Sophia while wrestling with the magnitude of what she'd done. She'd destroyed the man she loved to avenge strangers she'd never met. She'd chosen abstract justice over tangible. Love that trust fund Adrian had mentioned never materialized. All his assets were tied up in litigation. Alina found work as a bookkeeper, moved to a smaller apartment, learned to budget groceries, and count pennies again. But this time was different. This time, she chose the poverty. This time, it felt like penance.